What is the ripple effect? Every thought and every action has a reaction that is felt out in the universe.
There is only one art. That art is you.
On my show, I feature everyday people that are positively changing the lives of other people.
What I do and who I am made a difference in those people's life.
Just as a single drop of water sends ripples out into a pond, the actions of every individual are felt in the universe.
It only takes a split second to cause a ripple.
What ripples are you sending? Welcome to The Ripple Effect. I'm your host, Melissa Hall, and I am joined again by my guest, Kevin Ross, who was very kind and stayed to do a second episode with me today. And at the end of the last episode, you began to tell me about your trip to Cape Town, South Africa, where you actually got to meet Nelson Mandela. And I just have to ask, what was that experience like?
It was life-changing. It was more than what I expected it would be, but I also had high expectations. It started at the end of 1999. I just graduated from Morehouse College, and I learned about this conference that was taking place in Cape Town. And I learned that among the keynote speakers, former South African President Nelson Mandela would be addressing this conference. And I was basically a penniless college graduate with a big dream of meeting him. I told you that one of my heroes was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. When I was growing up, Superman and Spider-Man were like secondary heroes, but I really was inspired by work by him and of course, Nelson Mandela. I didn't know that I would get an opportunity to meet him, but when I found out that this conference was happening and that I would actually be in the same place at the same time with him, I said to myself, I made a declaration. And I think that's something every one of us can make. It costs us nothing. I made actually two. I said, number one, the minute I saw the brochure, I said, I'm there. And I got up and I circled the dates on my calendar, just immediately circled the dates on my calendar, said, I'm there. Again, penniless. And then I said, of all the people going in and out of Cape Town, South Africa for this conference, I'm going to be among those who get to shake hands with President Nelson Mandela. No evidence, just a powerful declaration. A few days later, I was back in Chicago, where I'm from, and I was volunteering during the summer at my church with my minister, Dr. Johnny Coleman, who's since made her transition. Of course, the president has made his transition, President Mandela. But I said to her, I said, is there anything that you need help with this summer? Can I help you with anything? She said, there is this prayer breakfast that these leaders want me to organize for a delegation going to South Africa. I'm just so overwhelmed. I don't have time to organize a breakfast, and I don't even want to do it. But, if you can help me organize this breakfast for these leaders that are going to this conference, then that would be a big load off of my shoulders. I said, well, what's the conference? She said, here's the letter. She handed me the letter. I was like,
Oh my gosh.
And so I organized. I said, not a problem. I got it. I said, I'll make you look great. All you have to do is walk in and say a few words, and the delegation will appreciate it. Because at that time we owned still do, a banquet facility and all that sort of thing. So we were able to host it within our own means and everything. So we hosted I organized this banquet breakfast, and Dr. Coleman came, and she was sitting pretty and everything was well. And because I organized it, I put a little part on the program for me, just at the very end, to give the closing remarks. And so I gave the closing remarks in an inspirational sort of way. Now, what I did not know was that the president of the conference was present. He actually was there, and after it was all said and done and people were packing up to leave, he said to me, young man, are you planning to go to the conference? I said, well, I would love to go to the conference. I circled the dates on my calendar, so I'm free to go to the conference. He says, well, we need you at the conference. We have a youth conference, a youth convention aspect of this, and we would love if you could come. And we want to scholarship you. Oh. We want to scholarship you to attend. I said, well, how can I refuse this? I said, absolutely, I'm in. And he says, and if you have other friends who, you know, are equally inspiring and, you know, like you, I mean, pull 2 or 3 or 4 of them together because we want to scholarship them. I said, well, if I don't have them, I'll bake them in the oven like gingerbread men. I'll have them by the time it's time to go. And among the people I took with me in that delegation was my 14-year-old mentee who I mentioned, Montez Cobb, yes, who got to go. Fast forward, we get to, we fly to Cape Town, South Africa. Little fun story within the story. I told Montez that he could go to the conference. He got all excited. He was 13 at the time. He was about to turn 14. He turned 14 in South Africa. I told him he could go. His mother got all excited. What can we do? I said, I've made arrangements for your hotel, for your meals, wow, for everything. All you have to do is raise the money for your airfare. And so he, as a 13-year-old, organized everybody, and they did all kind of bake sales and everything, food and cooking and you name it, they did it. They came up with the amount of money that I told them was for the airfare. What they didn't know was that that was really for his spending money. So he raised $1,700 to spend in Cape Town, South Africa, because his trip was all paid for. And so 17 times 6. So he went over there a millionaire because the money was 6 times more. That's a little parenthetical, but just talking about inspiring our mentees to take action on their own behalf. We get there, and now it's arriving in South Africa was phenomenal because the community that was surrounding the hotel, as we pulled up to the hotel, the individuals from the community, they welcomed us, welcome home, brother, and they gave us, so we were in tears as we, walked into the hotel. And then fast forward, it's time now to go into the convention where President Mandela will be speaking. And as I headed into the convention center, I'm walking into the convention center and I bump into someone I had not seen in a long time. Michael Bernard Beckwith. He's most famous for his work at Agape International Spiritual Center and also the movie The Secret. So he was one of the people in The Secret, and we knew each other. He was like, Rev Michael, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? I say to him, he says, I'm about to present an award to President Nelson Mandela. I said, no, you're not. Shut the front door. He says, yes, I am. I said, hook me up, man. I said, I want to meet President Mandela. He said, it's done. Now, he said it's done in the attaboy, way to go sense. It wasn't, I'm going to make this happen, but it's done. You keep believing, aim high, that kind of thing. And so, and with these kind of things, there's all kind of protocol and security and
I can imagine.
You name it. And so we continue to walk into the convention from the back of the convention center to the front. And we were just chatting, and we got to the front row. There was a security checkpoint, and they started checking badges. Well, for some reason, they checked his badge. He did not have the correct credential on his badge, but I happened to have it, so I said, well, he's with me. And so we slipped to the front row and sat down with all of these other dignitaries, and, it was really cool. I don't know how I had the credential either, but it worked out. It's one of those things. And so as we're waiting for the program to proceed and everything, and there are thousands of people in this convention center, wherever it was, I can't remember exactly. Someone comes out and to get Reverend Michael to take him backstage, and that's when I prayed the prayer of a lifetime. I've never prayed this kind of prayer before, but I said, God, please make me invisible, because I'm about to walk back there with him. And I got up and I walked back there with him, just kind of eased right back with him, and they slipped in the back, and we were back there together. And then they gave us another round of badges, and so now I'm back there. And Michael said, "Kevin, you're pushing it." And I just kind of pause for a moment here. I was pushing it, but something was pushing me. Something was compelling me. Something was telling me that if I had the opportunity to rub elbows with someone of that ilk, of that consciousness, that some impact would be left with me. So PUSH I use as an acronym: persist until something happens. Especially when you're moving in the direction of your dream, of your desire. And so I kept pushing, and he says, "You're pushing." I know. And I get back there, and I said, "Well, I'm back here. Maybe I can also present the award to the president." "Kevin, you're pushing it." I said, "Well, can I at least ask who's in charge?" He said, "That man over there." Well, a few weeks before that, I was in New York speaking and participating in a conference, and the person who was in charge was the man whose conference I had just attended in New York. And I said, can I participate? You don't have any student members in this delegation, no youth delegation, to present to President Mandela? And he said to me, "It's done." That's
Wow.
what the man in charge said. "It's done." So I'm like, wow. So now we're backstage waiting. The president's advance team comes in to give us instructions. No flash photography because it hurts the president's eyes. Don't form an honor corps because he's had a long day. And allow him to come to you if he wants to interact, that kind of a thing. And so we stood there, we sat and waited. And then the next thing I knew, the doors opened in the backstage area, and in comes South Africa's favorite son. He walks in and just lit up the place. Everybody immediately formed an honor corps.
Oh, wow.
It was just the thing to do. Something prompts you. You must stand and you must form, you come to a place of honor when someone like him walks in the room. And so he walks in and he starts to shake hands with individuals. And of course, we're in a line. And so eventually he's coming to me. And he comes to me and he reaches for my hand, he takes my hand, and in that moment, time slowed down, time stood still, and I knew that I was holding hands with history, and I could feel it. And I looked into his eyes, and his eyes were not dim. There was no sight of malice or, there was just a purity, a cleanliness, an effervescence, a beauty in his eyes. And in that transaction, I said to myself, if he is holding no grudges and no malice and no hatred in his heart, I can never do so. I can never do so. And I won't tire in doing good. By the way, this is the hand that held his hand. So I'll just give you that transmission.
Thank you.
And so just to wrap it.
I just feel this moment.
It was powerful.
It's powerful now.
And I think it was because my life changed. It changed my life. That soul instant. I call it a holy instant. It was a holy instant. It was a reason why that happened. And after that was done, after we shook hands and had an opportunity to wait, now he has to go give his speech, and then we're going to present him with the award. And the people in my entourage had already gone and were seated. Our delegation were seated. They didn't know where I went. They said the next thing they knew, in front of 6,000 people, all of these leaders are coming on stage to present an award, and at the end of the line, walking out like Forrest Gump, was Kevin Ross. Walking up on the stage, presenting this award to President Mandela in Cape Town, South Africa. And I'd like to share that story with people because sometimes you need to hear something that pushes you past the straight-jacketed imaginations that we tend to have. Sometimes our imaginations are hung up in only what we see as possible.
Wow. I'm going to ask you to just hold that for just a minute. We need to take a break, but I'm enthralled. Like, I just can't wait to hear what you have to say next. But this is The Ripple Effect. I'm Melissa Hall, and I'm delighted to bring you Reverend Kevin Ross. Please join us for the next segment. We'll see you back.
Yeah, be cool, just move with the groove. No funk in here, the beat way too smooth. Yeah, let's just do what we came to do. Just vibe with it, vibe with it. Be cool, just move with the groove. Let's go. No funk in here, the beat way too smooth. Let's just do what we came.
Welcome back to The Ripple Effect. I'm your host, Melissa Hull, and we are joined today by Reverend Kevin Ross, the author of the book, The Designer Life. And Kevin, you just finished telling us about this amazing experience with going to South Africa and meeting Nelson Mandela, and what a powerful moment that was in your life. It's a part of this journey that you've had, and in this book that you've written, you're really helping or hoping to help people feel empowered to kind of live their life purpose and have a life of greatness. Mm-hmm. So tell me, what inspired you to want to write this book?
I believe we have a responsibility to pay it forward. To whom much is given, much is required. And so we talked about mentors earlier. Yes. Les Brown paid it forward and invested in me. Jack Canfield invested in me. Dr. Dennis Kimbrough, Dr. Johnny Coleman, Reverend Ike. I can speak to a number of individuals who invested their energies and their times and their skills, and they put it in books. They put it in resources and tapes that I used to listen to over and over again. And I have that same responsibility to pay it forward. I think of the person who will pick up this book and put down the gun. You know, that there's a gentleman by the name of Mark. Mark was a very good friend of, Mark was the fiance of a very good friend of mine, and happened to be in San Diego. While in San Diego, attending a conference with Lisa Nichols, who's a great speaker and her writing author, I get a phone call from Los Angeles here from a beloved friend of mine telling me she needed to see me right away. I said, well, where are you? She says, I'm in Los Angeles. Now, what are the odds that I'm in San Diego and she's in Los Angeles? And so I said, well, can you tell me what it is? I really need to see you face to face. So I drive from San Diego to Los Angeles, and we have this sit down, and she tells me that her fiance, Mark, killed himself. Mark took his own life because I believe Mark was living with a sort of spiritual bankruptcy, emotional bankruptcy, because he equated the failure of his business. He was in business, things weren't going well. He equated that to his personal failure. He felt, like many people feel, that they are not enough. Mm. And so this book is for the Marks of the world. If they pick it up, they might put down the gun. They might put down self-destructive tendencies, alcoholism and addiction and all of that. I want people to pick up better ideas for themselves. There are better options that an individual can choose from. Greg picked up this book. His name is Greg, and he ended up coming because he wanted to do some work together. And I love telling Greg's story. He wanted to do some work together because he wanted to write a book. He was an overachiever, an educator, a musician, big in real estate. He was already on fire, but he had this compelling sense about him that he needed to write a book. And so I did some coaching work with him. We finally get his book out. His book comes out. His face is on the front cover of his book. The first day that the book goes out, he sells 700 copies immediately. This is how ambitious Greg was. The book is circulating, and someone picks up his book and says, wow, Greg looks just like his father. And no, he can't, because Greg doesn't know his father. She says, well, I know Greg's father. Can I have this book? And she takes the book, his new book that had just come out. She takes it and she says, can I give it to the man who I think is Greg's father? Yes. Greg, the lady took the book to the person, and sure enough, it was Greg's father. Now, back in the day, apparently there was something with the mother and keeping secrets and all of that, and so he was kind of the hush child or whatever it was. But because he responded to a greater thought about himself, he had an idea about himself that he could actually be an author. And we were able to share that through my book and my coaching and all. He got a great idea about himself. He then wrote a book which had the ripple effect. He lived his life as an overachiever because he felt that his living in such a way would make his father proud, the father he never knew. Well, lo and behold, his dad was so happy to learn of him after 50 years of not being in his life, and they reunited. The father embraced him. He was a retired military, I believe general or something, not general, but high in the military. He lived not far from him. He was wealthy. And he took Greg in, took the grandchildren in, and it was just this phenomenal. So I think there's always that glad surprise when we set out to not think so little of ourselves, because we're often so self-focused that we're not focusing out on what difference can be made because we deliver our gifts on the planet. And so I wrote this book for the Gregs of the world. I wrote this book for the Montezes, the Karinas, the individuals who may be up late at night contemplating life and death. Yeah. I think there are ideas in this book that individuals can take on, and in that can turn the course of their lives.
That is very true. I was somebody in a moment who was very broken for a time after the loss of my son, and I remember receiving a letter from a woman sharing with me this story of losing her daughter. And at the bottom of the letter, she said to me that if I chose, I could still find joy. And she spoke hope into a very broken, hopeless woman at the time who gave me just that little bit of a spark, and I began to believe that maybe I could find that joy that she spoke of. And I think that this book is another form of that letter going out into the world, and I'm just so honored to have you here today to really help those people who really need this message to really believe that there is beauty and there's hope.
And there's everyday greatness.
Absolutely.
No matter how little you think of yourself, no matter how short or small you think of yourself, someone is always looking up to you.
Yeah.
There's something that you can provide with your example, with your life, with your story, with your gifts. And so I think we don't, yes, Oprah, yes, President Mandela, yes, you name the hero, but they're everyday heroes and sheroes all around us. And that's what I'm more interested in inspiring. I want to inspire and empower millions of people to design and live the lives of their dreams in the context of freedom, love, and joy. And that's what it's about for me.
I also believe that there are everyday people doing extraordinary things that the world needs to know about. Their contribution is so needed in this world today. And I hope that from today forward that I can work with you to continue to bring about the kind of change that I wish to see the world embrace. I want more love and harmony and joy and kindness and tolerance and respect for every person from every corner of the world, from every religion, and just I want to create a world that is focused more on what brings it together over what divides it.
You know, this moment is a result of that intention. that you and I can make that agreement here and now to let's cross race lines, let's cross lines of religion and cross those lines to co-create a world that works for everyone. That together we can be a force for good in the world. That together we can tear down walls and build bridges, which is what I think is needed here and now. And it's desperately desired. More of us want this, and I think what we're doing is awakening a conscious majority. There's a conscious majority that want to bring us together, and I think we're on that path. I think this is evidence of that right now.
I agree. I agree. And it, I wish people could feel this energy in the room right now, because it's marvelous. It feels inspired and divine, to be very honest. It feels like being called forward to do some great things. I believe that the world is desperately needing leaders like yourself. And thank you for being the leader that you are. You inspire me. Your stories touch me, and I feel through you those experiences, and it makes me want to do more, to find new ways to work with people like yourself to just really bring about the change in the world that I would like to see. And it's wonderful to know that you also agree, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
I look forward to as well.
Really an honor for me.
We are the ones we have been looking for. If we don't make it everybody else's solution, but just start right here with the recognition that we're the ones we've been looking for, and convince other people of that, I think we're on our way.
I agree with you. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your stories and for talking about this book. Now, where can people find your book if they'd like to purchase it? Is it available on Amazon?
It is on Amazon and KevinRossInspires.com.
That's wonderful. I want to thank you for joining us today. I am Melissa Hull, and this has been The Ripple Effect. We'll see you next week.